As I walk back to my desk with a cup of coffee, I'm trying to figure out how I'm supposed to get all of this work done. It's January of 2009, which means not only do I have my day-to-day job to worry about, my everyday routines, but I also have quarter end. It's the end of the fourth quarter. In addition to that, it's year end. So I have year end stuff to do. Oh, and by the way, we're also in the middle of a global recession, which is adding to my list of things to do. I am completely swamped. So as I sit down at my desk, I get a cup of coffee and the phone rings. The other end of the line is our marketing professional. She tells me that she needs to get some documents out to some of our biggest centers of influence or some of our biggest partners. And she asks if I have the data updated. I don't. So she follows with, when will I have it done? I don't know. But I tell her I'll get to it as soon as possible. Hang up the phone, look up, there's the compliance officer right there, waiting for me to get off the phone. She asks me if I've got some information for her so she can do her filings. I tell her I don't, but I'll get to it as soon as possible. Afterwards, I get going on my computer. I barely get my computer program open. It's called Access. Barely get Access open, and the boss calls me in to his office. He's right across the hall from me. He says he's disappointed that the performance hasn't been updated and calculated yet because he's got a big client meeting in about 2 hours and he doesn't have anything to show him. So I tell him, don't worry, boss. I'll prioritize it. I'll get to it as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the marketing professional came over again, this time in person, and she asked me for yet another thing. And now I've had enough. I have to come clean. Tell her I don't know how I can get to that. I don't know how I can do this. I'm completely swamped. I have no idea how I'm supposed to get all of this done. And she just calmly looked at me and said, one bit at a time. That's how you do it, one step at a time. So what I need to do is just do one thing, and then do another thing, and then do another thing. My problem was that I was looking at everything that I had to do in aggregate, all of this, all at once. And that's a problem because this is never going to get done. But this can. And she taught me that I can celebrate small victories. I can celebrate small wins and be happy that I'm on the way towards where I need to be, whereas getting caught up. That's different from forcing a big win, trying to get everything done all at once. Even Lao Tzu once said many thousands of years ago that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Find out more right after this. Hey, it's Derek Hagan. I'm a financial therapist specializing in purpose, meaning, mindfulness, and happiness, here with another Money Health presentation where we're going to talk about celebrating small steps instead of forcing big wins. Your world effectively comes down to what you pay attention to. What you pay attention to becomes your reality. What you pay attention to equals your reality. If you focus on what you don't have, it's going to feel like you're deprived. If you focus on what you do have, you're going to feel abundant. And this is where I was. I was focusing on all the work I had to do. I was focusing on all the work I haven't done yet. And what I could have been doing is focusing on the work that I have already gotten done. But by focusing on what I hadn't done yet, I was creating a lot of stress for myself. And so you can create a sense of accomplishment. And here's celebrating these small wins. That's going to give you that sense of accomplishment. But if you keep waiting, hoping for a big win, you're not going to get a sense of accomplishment from that. Now, part of the reason for this is that we have ingrained in us a negativity bias. So, for example, your genes were passed down to you from your parents, and your parents' genes were passed down from their parents, and your grandparents' genes were passed down from your great-grandparents or their parents. This is pretty obvious, right? But if you follow that chain thousands and thousands of times, you're going to get to people whose sole focus was survival. Somewhere in your ancestry, you have ancestors whose main focus was survival. Well, that's important. That's different from today. So the idea is, because of this survival-focused mentality that your genes are rooted in, you are extra sensitive to threats. And why is that? It's because you can't be right all the time. So if you think something positive and something positive happens, well, hey, that's good stuff. If you think something negative and something negative happens, well, at least you're able to do something about that. But that's only if you're right. What if we're wrong? And we can be wrong in two different directions. We can think something's positive and it turns out to be negative, or we can think something's negative and it turns out to be positive. And when that's the case, we are always going to err on the side of being too cautious. So for example, if you see a stick and you think it's a snake, you're going to run away. And the worst thing that's going to happen to you is you're going to get a little embarrassed because you ran away from a stick. But you live until tomorrow to get embarrassed again. That's a win from a survival mentality. You thought something negative, a snake, turned out to be not so negative, a stick. But that's okay because you survived. Now, if you saw a snake and you thought it was a stick, if you saw something negative, a snake, but you didn't think it was negative, you just thought it was a snake, it's not so sure you're going to survive until tomorrow. So because of that, we have this negativity bias. So reality is that there's all the good, there's all the bad going on around us. There's good things, there's bad things, there's positives, there's negatives. But we have been trained from our ancestors that everything runs through this negativity bias. So our perception is that the world is worse than it is, that it's more stressful than it is, and there's less to be happy for than there actually is. It's because of this negativity bias. But furthermore, it's easy to think that if you just give somebody enough information, if you just give somebody enough data, then they'll change. You want to stop smoking? Here's the research that shows you that it's going to shorten your life. You want to lose weight? Here's the research showing you that you should eat less and exercise more so that your net calories are less. Simple. That's all you need, right? But it takes just a little bit of contemplation, and you realize that people can be ready to change or not ready to change. Now, the reality is there's several different stages of change. Starting here at pre-contemplation, a pre-contemplation stage, these are just the jargony titles for them, but at the pre-contemplation stage, you don't even know that there's something that you're supposed to be doing. You don't even know. The only reason you're not changing, or you didn't even know that there was something to do until somebody told you there was something to do. So for example, if you've never heard of umbrella insurance, there's no way you're going to think that you should go looking for umbrella insurance. You've never heard of it. Why would you do something that you've never even heard of? Okay, then you progress from pre-contemplation to contemplation. The contemplation says, okay, I've heard of something. I've heard that there's something to do. I've heard I should quit smoking. I've heard I should exercise more. I don't know. Status quo bias kicks in a lot here. The status quo bias is that we will fight to stay the same because our ancestor, the primitive part of our brain likes familiarity better than it likes change. So we will fight to keep things familiar. So even though we know I'm supposed to lose weight, or I'm supposed to quit smoking, or I'm supposed to start saving money, I don't know. Right. So that's the I know I'm supposed to, and I don't really want to. Then you progress from contemplation up to preparation. Now, when you're prepping, you're starting to think, all right, I'm ready to set a resolution for this. I'm ready to commit to this. I'm ready to start reading some books, doing some online trainings, figuring out ways that I can actually do this. So you're starting to figure it out in the preparation stage. It's something you're committed to. Now, then you're all the way up there in action. In the action stage, you are in it. You are doing it. You are implementing the plan. You are creating the habits that you need to get to where you want to go. You're doing the training. You've got the system going. That's where you want to be in order to get a change, is that action stage. Right. So now this isn't really lockstep. It's not linear. You can jump in and out of these. You can fall 2 stages down. You can move one up. You can skip a step. You know, you can jump all around. This isn't like a lockstep kind of a situation. And everybody goes at different stages. But trying to implement something here, if you're down here or even here, isn't going to work. So if you are trying to do something and you're not really ready to go, you should be trying to get to the next step up rather than trying to force the big win. So if you didn't know about the negativity bias, or you didn't know that there's different stages of change, it's easy to think that the only way to succeed is to make a big change, do a big hurdle. Something big needs to happen. I got to force a big win. I got to get all the way up there. This is me when I had all that work to do. I have to get all this work done, right? So what do? You start to think, what am I going to do? Am I going to climb this wall? Am I going to get a trampoline and try to jump over this? How am I going to get over this big, gigantic wall? Okay, this is what happens when people set goals. We set a big, gigantic goal, and then we try to figure out how we're going to get to that goal. There's a lot of things wrong with that. The first is that even when you get to that top of this, even if you get that big goal, it's going to feel pretty good, or it has the potential to feel pretty good for some time, for a little bit of time. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. We get used to our surroundings. We get used to everything that's around us. So you're going to set this big old goal, and maybe you get there. And then you're going to feel pretty good for a while, and then you're done. You have to set another goal because now you're used to it. Second is that it's not even sure that you're going to feel that big shot of joy, because this isn't going to be like climbing the mountain or jumping over with the trampoline. You're going to make incremental progress towards this goal. And then the last step that you make to accomplish that goal, you've already gotten used to all those steps along the way. So the last one is going to feel underwhelming. Yeah, I did it, but yeah, I didn't really do much because you already did all the other stuff. It's like if I was at work and I finally submitted that last report, that doesn't feel, I submitted a report. It doesn't feel like I cleared the whole amount of work that I had. Right? So it feels underwhelming when you get there. Now, the third is if you spend your life here or here, you are spending too much time in the future. You keep putting off your happiness to some point in the future, hoping that at some point you're going to be happy. You're putting off your happiness to the future. As soon as I get this goal, as soon as I get that, as soon as I do this, as soon as whatever, then I can finally be happy. But guess what? It's always right now. It's always the present moment. And if you train yourself that you're only going to be happy in the future, you're never going to be happy in the present. If you cut off being happy until you get something else, you're never going to be satisfied with what you have. And finally, just like with my story from the job, that's intimidating. It's intimidating to be this person. That's intimidating. And when we accomplish, or not accomplish, but when we are faced with big, gigantic things, we might quit. We might think it's too much. We might not even try, or we might give up because that's impossible anyways. So what's the alternative? The alternative is to go to the other side. Remember, we were over there? Let's just walk over this side and let's take a step and let's celebrate that step. Let's celebrate being where this person is. That's a step in the right direction. Journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. That's the step. Then you can take the next step. Then you can take the next step. And then you can take the next step. And so on, and so on, and so on. Celebrate those small victories. And a real big reason for this is gratitude. Gratitude is being grateful, thankful for what you have. Look how far I've come. Instead of the alternative, which is that earlier person thinking about how am I going to get over this big mountain? Am I going to climb a rope? Am I going to jump over it? How am I going to do it? That's frustration. This is gratitude. There's a lot good around you, a lot of good around you. You just have to pay attention to it. So you can incorporate this gratitude. You can hunt for gratitude. You can find the things there are to be grateful for. And you can do that while climbing up the stairs. And you'll be happier for your trouble. You get one life. Live intentionally.